Welcome, everybody. It's Wes here for Fandom Power. Tonight, things are a little different. As you can see, Andy is absent, as is Hank. But tonight, we are bringing you a special guest, good friend of the show, Erik Swenson.
Special enough.
Welcome to the studio.
Good to be here.
This is the first time you've been in studio since we put the home studio here.
It is indeed. I am impressed.
It's your first visit to the Saw Cave, as we call it here, the Saw Cave.
Fair enough. Underground, good times.
Hey, but you know what? Andy may not be here in the Saw Cave, but he is with us in spirit because there he is from Sawcast Productions, our YouTube channel. There's Andy. It's showtime.
Showtime indeed.
It is showtime, and tonight we're talking about a show. We're talking about The Legend of Vox Machina. Now, this is something I know when we started podcasting, like, oh my God, what, a year and a half ago?
At least that, if not more.
When we were brainstorming ideas, the talk of discussing things like Dungeons and Dragons and other role-playing games, which we both really, really love.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Came up. And you know what? This kind of is self-serving in the sense that we get to talk about Dungeons and Dragons tonight in a roundabout way.
Absolutely. Like, I'll tell you, for the viewer, Wes and I played a game for what, almost 2 years. We played that game?
About a year and a half.
About a year and a half.
Year and a half long, yeah.
And I still miss it. Like every once in a while. Man,
that is the story of my gaming career, though. Like, the best games that I have ever been in have never finished.
Well, I mean, you're the one who picked the longest story in D&D history to try and run us through.
I did. It was one of the longest ones. It is.
But it was a good time.
It was a good time. And my passion for the game is still there. I still love it. I certainly don't play it nearly as much as I would like to. Obviously, this takes up a considerable amount of time. But something like The Legend of Vox Machina comes along, and suddenly I get to live vicariously, or I get to game vicariously through it.
Yeah. I'll tell you this much. I really can't tell you the story of how I came into Critical Role fandom because I don't honestly remember. It was pretty much in their first year.
Well, I think you had actually you would kind of put me onto it. You'd ask me if I had watched it. I'm like, no, what is it? And then you explained that it was a bunch of people
getting paid to play D&D,
sitting around recording their Dungeons and Dragons game. Now, that doesn't seem like a big deal anymore. Not in today's world, but like even like 5 years ago.
Yeah. Well, now we have the wherewithal as people to go, oh, all it is the world's longest form improv.
Yeah.
Literally, that's all it is. But back in the day, they're like, well, they're gonna play make-believe and get paid for it.
It's true. Yeah, that is true. But like I was saying, Legend of Vox Machina, we get to game sort of vicariously through it. It does have roots in the Dungeons and Dragons game.
It does.
So, I mean, we're going all the way back to what, 1974?
That's outside of my wheelhouse.
Yeah.
I'll leave that to you, old man.
1974. But I mean, this slide is just sort of a quick overview of all the editions of the Dungeons and Dragons game over the years, including the offshoot. Now, it's not a Dungeons and Dragons property, but Pathfinder, which they did use in Critical Role for a little while.
Yeah, so the story goes that they were playing, the first game they played at home was a Pathfinder one-shot, and they sort of played their game, they went home, and then over the next couple of days, some phone calls from, hey man, I had a really good time doing that. You wanna do that again? Let's go get there. And then it just grew into this sort of fabled kind of the superstar D&D game that was played once a week amongst these very, very famous voice actors.
Did you say and that's kind of the thing. That's what sets this one apart. Like, I mean, even back in the 90s, I mean, when I had a regular group, we had actually talked about let's play our game and let's record it, even if it's just the audio. Nobody thought about let's put a video camera on it.
Well, yeah, I mean, really, this is just an extension of what they did for Dragonlance, because Dragonlance, they played the game and then they wrote the books based on what they did in the game.
Well,
or there's some sort of similar relationship.
There is a synergy there where in the beginning, because the project was announced as a complete, like, hey, you're going to write a game, you're going to write a novelization of that game. And so they did, in some points they did play and then write the novelization, but eventually the novelization just overtook
Yeah,
the game.
as things do, the game falls behind.
Publishing schedule says you need to produce something, and so they did. And so, but that's been filled in. But that's not what we're. I get the idea.
There's a connection there, and this is the next step of that. It's like, well, instead of writing it down or recording it, why don't we just put it online and let people watch? It's gaming voyeurism.
You know, we were talking about this before the show went live tonight. We were talking about, you know, just explaining sort of the technology that we use here in the studio to produce our show. And one of our streaming destinations is Twitch. And I think of, you know, Twitch as being a destination for video gamers. But I mean, every Twitch gamer out there now kind of like, well, video games in general really owe a lot to the tabletop gaming,
absolutely,
games of the past, and
without a question
the present, because they're still going. Dungeons and Dragons, the longest selling role-playing game in history,
which is crazy to say, because like they're only in 5th edition right now, and there are other tabletop I know that like Warhammer's in 9th edition or something.
Yeah, like I mean, when your system is broken,
well, the system breaks pretty easily. But I mean, even iteratively, like 5th edition is okay, but like the fact that it goes all the way back to, like you said, the late 70s.
Yeah.
That's like 50. I don't do math. That's almost 50 years. That's almost 50 years.
Yeah. 3rd edition is the one I spent all the money on. I mean, the behind us here in the cave. I mean, that's
somewhere
there's a good chunk
this
of
one here. Somewhere is somewhere in this area.
Yeah, it's over there. Spent a lot of money on 3rd edition, and that's been sort of that's my my default go-to.
I was a bad person. I didn't spend money on 3rd edition.
Oh, you didn't have to. I had.
There was this thing back in the day that existed called LimeWire.
I was going to say, what, the Pirate Bay?
Kids, ask your parents.
The Pirate Bay BitTorrents?
But no, yeah, I played a lot of 3, and then when Pathfinder came out, I got into Pathfinder, and we played a couple of games of Pathfinder at school.
Same thing.
Skipped 4th edition, and then before I ever got into 5th edition was when I encountered Critical Role. And they kind of turned me onto it because I was listening to how they played it, and I was picking up on some of the adjusted game mechanics. And I said, okay, maybe I'll check it out. So I went and I looked at the player's handbook in I think it was in a chapters or something for like 2 hours.
Yeah, sure.
And I was like, okay, I guess I'm going to buy this now.
Interesting. I was hooked in. I mean, my introduction to Dungeons and Dragons. I mean, do you remember the red box, the original red box?
I've seen the red box in.
So I mean, I played
thick plastic.
I played the red box when I was 7 or 8. I played the red box once with a friend of mine, and his mom was the DM. And then I never touched a role playing game again.
That's the coolest mom I've ever heard.
Yeah, 15 or 16, and I finally started playing. First role playing game I actually spent money on was not Dungeons and Dragons. Actually, it was the role playing adaptation for Robotech. But right in that time, that within the same year of playing Robotech, I mean, friends of mine is like, oh, playing Dungeons and Dragons. It's like Dungeons and Dragons. I'm like, what's Dungeons and Dragons? Oh, it's medieval fantasy with like wizards and magic, and I'm like, well, that's cool. Yeah. And so I've been sort of in and out of the hobby ever since now. So.
Yeah, and they exist all across genres. I remember we played it is Heroes and something. It's Heroes and Masterminds.
Yeah.
It was, which is just another D20 adaptation, and it was all about superheroes. And we played that a little bit, and then I moved out here and joined the army, and life got in the way, and then I met you.
Yeah.
And what did we play? We played a 3.5 adapted version of
Dragonlance. Yeah, the original Dragonlance Chronicles. Oh, it's like a 14 module.
Yeah, I think we got into the second module.
Just starting the second.
Just starting because we were coming out of the castle into the mountains, and we were being chased.
Yes, yeah, you were followed by the armies of the.
I still remember that the last session we played was in that wizard's cave that somehow we miraculously got entry into. I still haven't read the books or the modules. Oh, you should. You should. I'm waiting.
They're good. Okay, well, if you're waiting for me, you're going to be disappointed.
Anyways, so yeah, Critical Role. I literally just stumbled upon a clip on YouTube
So
somewhere.
we should probably just like stop for a second and actually just like on the nose explain.
Yeah, let's do it.
That Critical Role, as you say, is a bunch of established voice actors.
Well, in their own words, they're a bunch of nerdy ass voice actors who get together once a week and play Dungeons and Dragons. And then someone in the background goes, "We play Dungeons and Dragons."
Yeah. And then
it's a good time.
And then they had this wonderful, and I mean, it's not an original idea, not anymore, but there was this idea. We like doing this. There are fans of this who might enjoy the story.
Yeah. So I can go all the way back to the start of that. And it was, so two of the players have the same birthday. Two of the players, you see them both. Are they both in there? Oh yeah, they're both in there, top left and center top.
Okay.
That's Liam and Laura.
Right.
And they have the same birthday.
Oh,
so
okay.
Matt, who's the DM, who's all on his lonesome on the top left.
He's the guy with his own window.
Yeah. He spoke to Liam and he's like, "Hey man, do you want to play like a one shot for your birthday?" So yeah, Liam had been a fan and he wanted to play again, and he roped in his friend Sam, and then other people got dragged in, and it ended up being this one shot that they played
sure
at home. And then, like I said, a couple of days later, like, "Hey man," texting in the group chat, like, I had a lot of fun doing that. I had a lot of fun doing that. Yeah. And then they just ended up, it sort of became this weekly thing. And it became,
I don't know if you had to go through this like as a teenager, but for me, like there was this like there was, and I don't think that there is so much anymore, but there was a stigma attached to Dungeons and Dragons and role-playing games, especially if you were coming up in the 80s. I mean,
until very recently, there was a stigma about at least talking about it outside of the cave.
You didn't have to go through the satanic panic of the 1980s where every parent group and the schools were getting involved, and suddenly, Dungeons and Dragons was banned from like schools and things.
And then there was that awful Tom Hanks movie.
Yeah, that really put a huge nail in the coffin.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I never had to live through any of that, and it certainly doesn't exist in that format now.
No. Well, this is it. Like, I mean, I got to a point in my life where I was comfortable enough and adult enough that, you know what, I just stopped caring what people thought. As a kid, sure, when people start making fun of you and it doesn't feel good and you don't like it. But now when you play D&D, yes, I do. And you should play it too, because it's a lot of fun.
There's a lot of that, and we can go into that a little bit after, but there's a lot of benefits to playing D&D that people don't even consider.
Well, I'll say this much, and I've said it before outside the context of our show. In my previous career, I worked in healthcare, and I always I said to borrow a line from a friend of mine who also worked in healthcare, if I knew as much about medicine as I knew about Dungeons and Dragons, I would be a PhD 3 times over.
Easily.
Our first comment from Facebook coming in tonight from Fletch, who says it was a crazy time. It was a crazy time. It was a crazy time because I joined the Dungeons and Dragons Club at my public school, and it lasted exactly 1 week before the parents shut it down. Yeah, and you know what the funny thing is? The letter that came out from the principal cited the Marvel Sunbow cartoon as a reason why and how violent it was. Have you watched the Dungeons and Dragons cartoon? The one from the 80s?
I've seen snippets of it. I've never actually. I remember I watched a little bit of it because you actually put those weapons in our game.
I did, yeah. So Willie Ames from Charles in Charge, is the leader of the group. How violent can Willie Ames be?
Oh, that's ridiculous. And the Dungeon Master,
or Venger, voiced by Peter Optimus Prime Cullen.
Oh man.
Anyway, I digress. That's but it was to coin a term as Fletch has said, it was a crazy time.
Absolutely.
Follow-up comment from Fletch. They saved me.
From yourself.
I don't even know how to respond to that one. They saved me.
Be happy you can respond to that.
Well, now I'm an adult and I can spend my money however I want. And my book collection says, screw you.
So the legend of this famous voice actor game gets around in Hollywood, and Felicia Day from Geek and Sundry, gets to them. And if you can go back to the last one.
We can go back to the other one, sure.
You can see the date there on the bottom
Yeah, this is June 24th, 2015. This is the first.
This is episode 1. This is their first broadcast. This is exactly what it looked like.
Yeah, on the Geek and Sundry YouTube channel.
And yeah, the old Geek and Sundry set, which was a real throwback when you sent me this slide, because the whole thing was like, it was supposed to look like either your parents' basement or like a living room or like something like that.
I think they've got it. I mean, sure,
it's pretty much there. Yeah,
mind you, how many people have a huge giant chalkboard in their living room?
True say. So Felicia Day approaches them and she's like, there's probably a market for this. I'm like, well, we don't know. We don't want to corporatize our game. And she's like, no.
Yeah.
It's going to be your game. You're just going to keep playing it. We'll throw it online. If it gets traction, maybe it becomes a thing and maybe we make some money off it.
Yeah, sure.
And then that happens. And within the first couple of months, they're hitting hundreds of thousands of people
of views. That's interesting.
Like redonkulous numbers.
And looking at this at the slide, and it's like
there's not much to look at.
No, it's just them sitting at the table with him narrating the story, and there's really no visuals with it.
No visuals at all.
That's interesting.
They did brief for the first little while. They had brief little sort of animatic cartoony things that introduced you to each of the characters.
Yeah.
So that at least someone coming in not knowing what's going on would have some sort of reference point.
Okay.
And it was literally each person has their own character that they designed themselves. They submitted to Matt. Matt put them into the story and he just wove away.
Interesting.
Interestingly, they came in the middle of a quest. So this first episode is like the second or third session of a new arc of the story.
Yeah, and I mean, I watched a little bit of this video, and the way that he explains it, it's like, yeah, we've already been doing this for an indeterminate period of time. Only now we're just going to show you on online.
Yeah, they've said in interviews that they played for approximately 2 years pre-stream.
Interesting.
So you're coming in. The characters are 12 to 14.
I envy them for having a group that stayed together that long.
Well, I mean, when you live in Hollywood and you're all established voice acting talent,
and that's something that we're going to show you guys a little bit more as we move along with the show. Like how many of them, talking about being established in Hollywood, how many of them have a lot of professional overlap in the projects that they've worked on?
Oh yeah, we'll get there.
Yeah.
We'll get there. I do want to mention there is one guy in here who drops out of the program. There's I don't want to go into it, but one of these gentlemen does not continue on with the company, but the company itself continues on, and eventually they split from Geek and Sundry.
Yeah. They actually leave Geek and Sundry and go on to become Critical Role. Yeah.
I don't know if they're Critical Role Inc. or Critical Limited or
I don't know.
But they're just the Critical Role company now.
Yeah,
and this is a photo of their latest set.
Yeah, that's last week.
And as you can see, there's a marked change in ambiance, I guess is the way to say it. If you look at the background there's those wooden beams.
Yeah.
And then behind that, we've determined is a green screen.
I feel like that's a green screen. Yeah. Some of it's green screened, and but I mean, I love the ambience of like we're playing in a tavern.
Yeah, you're in a pub, and they can change the lighting so when it's nighttime, it goes a little bluer, it dims a little bit. You got your battle camera for the battle.
I was going to say, and now we've got a visual, and I mean, people out there who are, pardon me, who are in the in various role-playing communities, that there are tools out there like roll20.net. What's the other? There's a couple of virtual tabletop games. Yeah.
That you tabletop simulator on Steam.
So I mean, along with the books, I've got a huge case of like pewter miniatures. I mean, and you can still play that way, and lots of people do. I still like that. But if you didn't have that, if you didn't have the space for it, you've got this virtual space that you can create, and it's actually pretty immersive.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think it is anyway.
It is a lot of work, just like any other game would be. But luckily, when you're the most popular D&D show on the internet, you can get in with all the companies that make the cool stuff like Hero Forge.
Well, here's the thing, too, right? I mean, by the time you've hit the numbers that they're hitting in terms of view count, people are noticing, and people who are not in your industry are noticing.
Exactly.
That's when suddenly it's like, hey, how about reading? I know, watching this episode, and they're like, oh, but before we start, a few words from our first sponsor of this episode.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
then so
and if the YouTube display wasn't on there, you'd see underneath those little YouTube icons, they've got all their sponsors displayed.
The first one, for I think it was a company that made tarot cards.
Yeah.
It was kind of
they get some oddballs here and there. They've got some staples that come back every time.
But it's on brand, though.
It is. It totally
is. A deck of tarot cards is on brand for a fantasy role playing.
Absolutely.
Game. Yeah. But this project is unique in the sense that, as you say, they're all voice actors, all have worked in animation, various animation. We as the general public did not know that they had been wanting to do their own animated project for quite some time.
Well, I mean, it's kind of that sort of, I mean, I don't really know if this applies to everyone, but everyone I've played with at some point has been like, they pulled some crazy move and the DM goes, oh, and then he gives this big description of it, and you're like, dude, just picturing that would look so cinematic. And everybody in the back of their head is like, I want somebody to animate that, please.
So for me, it was because our co-host Hank, whom I went to high school with, was a budding comic book artist. Okay. So there was always like this, hey, this would make a great panel in a comic book, or this would make a great novel.
Yeah, if you're gonna try and play D&D with the friend group, make sure you make friends with a budding artist.
With an artist.
That's the way you do it. That's how you that's how you win.
Yeah, and own your stuff.
Absolutely.
Own your own stuff. Absolutely.
Yeah. So just a couple of little stats here. So campaign 1, they came in halfway through. They started at level 12 to 14-ish somewhere.
Oh wait, we should probably let the people know, like the Legend of Vox Machina in terms of campaigns.
Get there. Yeah. The Legend of Vox Machina, the TV show, is based on the second story arc that was played in the first campaign.
So by the time that they got to Vox Machina in the game, they had been playing for how long?
I think I want to say it was like 30 or 40 episodes, which their episodes are
once a week,
Thursday nights.
So that's almost a year's worth of
7:00 Pacific, which is 10:00 here.
Yeah.
And they play for, on average, 3 to 5 hours.
Ooh. So here's a question for you, though, because I have not followed this the same way that you have. Mm-hmm. Has the duration of session always been that long? Or has it gotten longer now that they're their own?
No, the duration has actually gotten shorter.
Really?
So because of the pandemic, they took like a 4 to 6 month break.
Okay.
And then when they came back together, they decided they were not going to do live anymore.
Oh.
So they don't do live anymore.
Interesting.
They pre-record now.
Well, I mean, there's a lot of things that you can't control when you're live.
Correct.
And I mean, as you say, if you have problems, if you don't have somebody on top of that problem to either hit a mute button or turn the camera off, or
you got to have your Ned Leeds. You need your guy in the chair.
That's right.
So
I'm my guy in the chair.
You're the guy in the chair, and when Andy's not here.
That's true. That's so true.
So yeah, they played the first game. They played 2 years pre-stream,
right?
And then it was approximately 3 years of streaming before the story of Vox Machina.
Right.
And then they played campaign 2 that lasted approximately 3 years, and they started playing campaign 3 like end of third quarter last year. So they've been playing it for just shy of 6 months.
But the reality is they've been playing for 7 years.
Yeah, they've been getting paid to play Dungeons and Dragons for 7 years, which,
and I mean,
hats off.
I'm of the generation that like I don't feel this way anymore, but I have to tell you, there was a time when somebody said to me that I'm going to be a professional YouTuber, and I'm like, get a real job. And now here I am.
He said loathingly as he gazed towards his future.
My beautiful new future.
So yeah, they played the first campaign. This screenshot is a screenshot of the third campaign. You'll notice that they've moved their positions around because every campaign they change their seating arrangements so that they can sit beside someone new.
Our friend Scott over on YouTube says, man, Wes, we can't even get 8 months in a row. Thank you, Scott. You are absolutely right. I cannot keep a game going for 8 months straight. That's so true.
It becomes work at that point.
We haven't even tried to play in over, well, it's got to be.
Well, maybe you
close to 2 years.
Sawcast Dungeons and Dragons.
So you know what? You know that's actually come up as something that, you know, if we were to get back into gaming in a meaningful way, could we adapt it for the show? And it's like the short answer is yes, we could. The longer, you know, more nuanced answer is, do I have the energy and the wherewithal to put it all together,
right,
and do all of it? I just don't.
Yeah,
I don't think I could do it all, not without having a permanent setup. And the setup that we have here in the cave doesn't support that as much as I would love to do it, because I think it would be a lot of fun.
Well, we'll talk when the broadcast is over, because maybe you just need someone else to take the reins.
Oh, maybe. I'd love to be a player in something like that. Yeah, for sure.
So anyway, Vox Machina, their campaign, they played somewhere in the vicinity of 115 episodes, which
at 3 to 5 hours each.
At 3 to 5 hours each averages out to somewhere in the vicinity of 600 hours for their first campaign.
Tell me, you know, that come on. I mean, like, there are people who spend way more time in other hobbies.
That's true.
Yeah.
That's true.
So, I mean, like, that stuff's important. You can tell that it's important to them.
The only difference between us and them is that they're actors.
They're getting paid to.
Well, number one, they're getting paid to do it, but number two, their career is playing make believe.
Well,
and they're playing make believe for our benefit now.
Yeah.
So, campaign 2, in the middle of close to the end of campaign 2, is close to the pandemic, or around when the pandemic started, and around the same time they started shopping the idea of,
right,
maybe we can get this animated.
I think we could do like an animated special or something.
Yeah. So the Kickstarter goes up, and it becomes like a nightmare and a dream and a miracle all at once.
Yeah, it's a 45-day campaign. It holds the record, the Kickstarter record, as the most successful film or television Kickstarter in Kickstarter history.
Period.
Yeah.
They were asking for $750,000 American.
Yep.
Because apparently that is what it costs to produce 22 minutes
of animation.
Yeah, exactly. And as it says there on the screen, they got that in 40 minutes.
Yeah, funded in 40 minutes and over $3 million in less than 8 hours.
So they posted their little thing, and they're like, hey, we were thinking of doing animation. We wonder if you guys might fund it. And the fandom went, fuck yeah.
What did we do? I put this into the calculator the other day. 88,887 backers, over $11,385,449. Did the math. It worked out that every person basically contributed $120.
The average was somewhere like 118 and change.
And I'm thinking, for 10 episodes of an animated series, that's like $1 an episode.
Yeah.
It was worth it.
That's crazy.
I definitely got $1 worth out of
it. For some perspective, that $11 million is 1,400%.
Oh yeah,
1,400% funded. They put up their initial thing, and then the following day they put up another episode of like update film, and they were all just like shell shocked on the couch, like, whoo.
We were talking yesterday before you got here about. Because I was putting the slides together for tonight's show, and I was looking, I went to the Kickstarter and I looked at it, and I clicked on the updates. I scrolled all the way down to the bottom, and I'm like, there's like 4 or 5 updates. I'm like, wait, those are all the same day. They were all on the first day.
Yeah.
How many updates they had done.
Yeah.
And then there's this gap, you know, where it's like, okay, March, whatever. And then suddenly April, blah, blah, blah. The campaign is closed. Thank you so much. And then $11 million. What?
Yeah, and you can tell based on their tiers that there were a handful of people who had donated somewhere in the vicinity of tens of thousands of dollars.
Oh, really?
Yeah, to become EPs.
Yeah.
And I think there was one that had like a small voice part, and like there were a couple of really cool at the like top of the barrel treats for the high paying people. But most everybody paid in the middle tiers, and there were tiers for $100. There was a tier for $50. There was a tier for $20.
still, I mean, every dollar counted.
Every dollar counted, and they had some really good Kickstarter. Like,
we talked about
prizes.
this yesterday, and I had said, you know, comparing it to a traditional film project where it's like your production budget also includes your marketing.
They
And it's
didn't
like,
do any
well,
marketing.
this is it. Like
Their marketing was, hey, it's Thursday night. We're going to play. Oh, by the way, Kickstarter.
Yeah. And that isn't that the virtue of Kickstarter? Kickstarter, by the way, for those of you who don't know, in terms of like entertainment, in particular where games are concerned, you know, Kickstarter is the best, is the fastest, best way to get a game to market.
There are so many board games.
More games than anything else get funded through Kickstarter. But they're a great way. It is a great way. I watched a lot of Dragon's Den. It's a great way to establish interest in something.
Absolutely.
And then, you know, you do your first round of funding through Kickstarter and then take it to someone and go,
yeah,
here's what I've got.
There's a woodworking company out of the Appalachians that I follow called Wormwood. They actually built a table for Critical Role.
Yeah. Are they still around?
They're still around, and they're still doing great because
some gaming table people I remember marketed this like uber awesome table, and then they kind of like went under.
There are lots of those.
Sure.
Wormwood has two price points. There's one
expensive and more expensive.
There's one that's expensive, and then there's one that's wow, that's expensive. Their cheaper versions are in the $800 to $1,000 range, and their expensive ones are in the $15,000 starting range.
Nope.
It's heirloom furniture, and it is like quality.
I could make a gaming table for less.
You could also build a house for less, but
well,
so what I'm trying to get across is that they use Kickstarter.
Oh yeah,
sure. To determine, like, we have this project that we think that people want to buy.
Right.
We need to know how many people want to buy it, so we'll put it on Kickstarter.
Yeah, and there you go. That's that establishing interest, and then you know your campaign funds, or it doesn't, and everybody gets their money back.
Correct. So this happens.
Yeah, the most successful film Kickstarter in Kickstarter history.
And, you know, $11 million, Kickstarter takes their chunk, which is a large chunk out of $11 million. I don't know what their percentage is.
Yeah, I never even
take a
considered
percentage off of it, but you're still left with in the vicinity of $7,000+.
Well,
million.
I mean, what did we say that their funding? The goal was for 750. So I'm just going to quickly do this. 700. Oh, that's not even that. That's not my password. What am I doing here? Oh my gosh.
Technology.
It works great when you
something about the 70s. What were we talking about?
What did we say? It was 750,000 that they wanted for
750,000 for 22 minutes of animation for one episode.
750,000 for one episode, and they wanted to make. They ended up making 10 episodes.
12.
So 12.
Yeah.
So that's $9 million if we're using that 750,000 benchmark per episode.
So I gather that 750 doesn't count for each episode because you're building assets, you know what I mean? And assets can be used across episodes. So I guess subsequent episodes might cost a little less, but yeah, you're looking at roughly $9 million.
So that tells you, like, that's a huge chunk that Kickstarter keeps.
That's a big chunk.
Ugh.
So that happens, and they take their Kickstarter results and they start shopping around for a company to actually do this,
to animate it.
Yeah. And they end up with Titmouse, who that's the one thing I forgot to write down is the other Titmouse project.
I was going to say, do we know what they've done?
They've done a whole lot, and you can pull that up in a minute while I vamp. But they ended up with Titmouse because a lot of the Titmouse guys that they met were already Critical Role fans. So
sure.
Like
Titmouse,
they jumped all over it.
American animation studio founded by Chris Peronsky in the year 2000. And what do we got here? I've recognized some of this stuff.
Yeah, so they're behind properties like Big Mouth.
Big Mouth. Oh, The Boys Diabolical, which I've just watched.
That was pretty good. They did one of those episodes.
Yeah. The Legend of Vox Machina, Big Mouth, Harriet the Spy.
What?
I've never watched that. Fairfax.
So yeah, they're behind a lot of these new adult cartoons that you're seeing on.
What's interesting is
Netflix
that 4 out of 5 of these are all on. 3 out of 5 of them are on Amazon.
Well, I mean, you go where you know you're.
More work. What else have we done?
So yeah, they're experienced. They've got They've done a lot of cool stuff over the last decade, I would say.
Well, yeah, I mean, because since the year 2000. Oh my gosh, they are responsible for Star Trek Lower Decks.
Looks like it.
Okay, well then I approve.
Well, there you go.
I definitely approve just based on that alone. So yeah, that's really good.
So they're fairly well. Oh, Indivisible! I love that game.
Okay, I had no idea. So look, it looks like they've done quite a bit, and it doesn't look to me like there's any particular genre that they're stuck
Black
to.
Dynamite's in there.
Black Dynamite.
It's like it's not a small.
No,
like,
they've got a lot.
it's
Legend
not
of
a little
Korra.
putt company.
I guess not. Legend of Korra. So a lot of people will probably recognize that one.
Everyone knows Avatar.
Yeah. So they've done quite a bit. Marvel Heroes.
Yeah.
This list just keeps going and going.
So they land on Titmouse.
Yeah,
and
okay.
They go back out to all of those streaming services that they've previously went, hey, we've got this game and we could make a cartoon.
Right.
And they all said no. And then they go, hey, we've got this game and we can make a cartoon. And oh, by the way, we have $11 million of Kickstarter money.
Yeah.
And suddenly, hey, Amazon will put that out.
Well, there's another thing, right? Yesterday we were talking about this, and I said if you were one of the folks behind Critical Role and you were trying to get this thing out there, and you came to me, and let's just say I'm a streaming service, and you tell me that, I'm like, that is a zero risk endeavor for me because you are getting somebody else to make it, and all I got to do is say, yeah, I'll distribute it, and then I get to tell you what I'm taking out of it.
That's fair.
Do you know what I mean? Like that is a zero risk.
So
thing.
Like I said yesterday, I think the only caveat is this was around the time where there were a couple of other shows that they took a risk on that flopped.
They being Netflix.
The companies, mostly Netflix. There's a famous Crunchyroll show that flopped. There's a famous
Crunchyroll just flopped.
Well, Crunchyroll itself just flopped. I don't need to go into that.
For for anybody out there who was a Crunchyroll subscriber, how do you feel about Funimation?
That's its own podcast.
Fair enough. That's next week.
There was also like the Thundercats remake that didn't do too well statistically.
Thundercats, yeah, the 2011 Thundercats, I don't think it really performed the way that they wanted it to, but like
the She-Ra show,
the Princesses of Power,
that
was good.
Didn't perform as well as they thought that was gonna.
Yeah, that's a bunch of man babies.
So again, people at these companies look at it and go, well, cartoons aren't doing super well right now.
Are cartoons still considered 20 minutes or 22-minute toy commercials?
Well, I wouldn't be able to comment on that. I haven't watched anything newer than the late 2000s. So
that is the traditional synergistic relationship is we got a product we want to get to market. We got to build an animated show around it.
Of course. So Titmouse, Amazon, things are looking up. They start making the show and they released a whole bunch of behind the scenes creation snippets, which are very, very cool to watch. It's all
even their with the little self-produced trailer they made for it. I watched that and I'm like, well, the animation was not quite
there
final.
Yeah,
but it was close. It was close.
I remember watching that first thing and going, just
Andy over on Facebook says Final Faction. And I'm assuming you mean that there is they've also done, as in Titmouse has also done Final Faction.
There you go.
I assume that's what you're saying. I'm not 100% sure.
Sounds about right.
Okay.
Yeah. So, and this is something I wanted to bring up. They said Amazon bought 2 seasons. And my question is, does that mean that we paid for a season?
We, the Kickstarter people.
With the Kickstarter, and Amazon bought 2 more?
I don't know. When they say they bought it, want to bet that they just bought the rights to it.
That wouldn't surprise me.
No. Andrew, follow-up comment. No, 22-minute toy commercial.
There you go.
Final Faction. I don't know. If I were to guess at it, I would bet that, the distribution thing means we'll just buy your show outright and then we own it and then we'll just fund the rest of it. So if they've already ordered, like say they've ordered 2 seasons, but one's already been completed.
But we already paid for one. So are they paying for 2 more?
I don't know.
I can tell you what those
I don't
2
know what the
seasons would
answer-
be.
I don't know. Well, I mean,
We'll get to that in a minute. We're getting to the actual show here.
yeah. I mean, they've got what, 2 other arcs or 2 other campaigns, and
There's at least 2 other arcs
that
plus
could be adapted.
numerous side arcs that could be turned into a filler season.
Sure. Now, what do you do though? Do you start bringing in writers, or do you start just?
Well,
you
they
just
brought
write
in, they
your
brought
own?
in a lot of writers. This is the interesting thing. While they were there, and if you guys want to go onto YouTube and watch their actual like production shorts,
Yeah.
you can see there's people in that writers' room that have done amazing things. Mark Bernardin was in there, and he's a prolific writer in Hollywood.
You're gonna have to tell me who that is. 'Cause I don't know.
So do you ever watch Smodcast? Like
Oh,
Smith,
yeah.
Will,
Yeah.
not Will Smith. Jesus,
Kevin Smith.
Christ. Kevin
Kevin
Smith.
Smith.
Kevin Smith. No, not Mr. Slap Happy.
Kevin Smith not slapping anybody.
Yeah, no. Kevin Smith does a podcast called Fat Man on Batman.
Yeah,
And
is
Mark
it still-
Bernardin is his co-host. It's
still called that now?
I think it's Fat Man Beyond now.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Mark Bernardin is his co-host, and Mark Bernardin is a prolific author of comic books
Oh, yeah,
and
okay.
Cartoons and stuff.
Sure.
He worked on the He-Man show
The
that
kids
just
one
came
or
out.
the Revelation?
that just came out
They both
with
just came
Kevin.
out.
Yeah, they both.
Oh, okay. So he
Yeah.
worked on Revelation.
He worked on Revelation. He's
Yeah.
working on something else right now that he can't talk about. So I'm waiting for him to.
I know
But,
that feeling.
Yeah. So Mark Bernardin's in there. There's other writers that they've worked with who have been guest stars on their show
Yeah.
that have come in, and they're also just working with the Titmouse guys, and they have, as we said before, they have that breadth of experience
Well,
doing the various
sure.
shows.
and that's another thing that we talked about is that like the cast of characters,
Mhm.
not only are they accomplished voice actors, but a lot of them are also like
Producers,
directors.
directors.
Yeah. So they already have a broad skill set.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah. Oh, it's incredibly interesting. So everything comes together. They do the show and they put it out, and it is Amazon's #1 most watched thing since it came out.
Interesting. What in the history of the service?
Oh, like just overall, it's top of the board
I did not
every
know that.
week after week since it came out.
Oh, okay. So it's
Even
number
now
one.
that it's over,
Oh, really? More so than
more so than the new shit that they want
I
people.
was
to
gonna say
watch.
the Wheel of Time and Jack Reacher and all the other cool shows that Amazon's put out.
Yeah.
Oh, it'll be
This-
interesting to
this
see.
funny little D&D show.
It'll be interesting to see when the Lord of the Rings comes out, how well that compares.
Yeah. So here we're looking at the cast. This is your motley band of misfit heroes, your actual people who make up Vox Machina.
Yeah, these are our characters. And Vox. So now it makes sense. Vox Machina is the name of this adventuring company.
It's the name of their troop, and they picked Vox Machina because their old adventuring group before they started the stream, they called themselves the Super High Intensity Squad,
Okay.
which the shits
Yeah.
was the name of their adventuring group,
Oh my God.
and you can't televise that. So
Well, Vox Machina. I mean, like
Vox Machina is voice machine.
Yeah, voice machine,
which
wink,
is a
wink,
pun
nudge,
off
nudge.
of
Yeah.
we're all voice
We're all voice actors in the
Funny.
machine. But it works.
It works.
Yeah,
And it does sound like vaguely Latin, and people are impressed by it.
yeah.
So, from the left here, you got Percival DeRollo. He is your human fighter with the subclass of gunslinger, which
That's a Pathfinder original.
that is a Pathfinder
yeah.
thing that Mercer, the Dungeon Master, actually adapted into 5th edition.
5th edition. Yeah.
And is now an official class in a printed book.
Oh, that's good.
You got Pike Trickfoot.
Well, you can't tell me that Wizards wasn't going to steal that.
Well, no, of course not.
Of course they were.
Of course. Absolutely. We got Pike Trickfoot here. She is a gnome cleric of, she is a war cleric
Sure.
of Sarenrae.
Okay.
But they've had to change all the gods' names.
I was going to say, because all she says in the show is she just talks about the light.
The Everlight.
The Everlight.
So all of the D&D gods of Pathfinder, which is
The
where
pantheon
they
of-
were
yeah.
pulled through. You got your Palor, you got your Bahamut, you got all of them, but they all have that little subtitle title.
Yes.
And it was Sarenrae the Everlight. So
Oh, really?
it's just the Everlight or the Dawnfather or
Sure,
the Mother
so
of Dragons.
Anything that they could use that would not violate a copyright
Correct.
law.
Correct. So
Interesting.
yeah,
Okay.
she is a war cleric. And then you got Grog. He is a I'm blanking here. He's a Goliath
barbarian?
berserker barbarian.
Yeah. I thought they were. So there was mention in the show that he was like a giant. Is he part giant?
The lore of Goliaths in the world of Tal'Dorei is that they are half human, half giant.
Oh, okay, half giant then.
Yeah, so
that makes
he
sense.
is a
Sure.
half giant.
Okay.
Scanlan, our lovable gnome bard of the College of Lore.
I actually quite liked his character, that he was essentially a super pompous, totally vain rock star.
Oh, absolutely. Especially, my literal favorite thing in there. Yes, no, that's an accurate summation there, Andy.
Andrew, Andy talking about Grog, a cross between the Hulk, Drax, and Kratos. The Kratos thing is not lost on me. I'm glad you said that, because I'm like, wait a minute, the tattoos and the body paint, and
it's easy to draw those. He's also got the core of a lovable goofball.
Well, I mean, his voice characterization is just this.
Oh, something down here.
Yeah, very much like that. Right? Yeah. The funny thing is, we talked about this, is as gamers sitting here, and I mean, you have the benefit of having watched the actual game, whereas I did not. But even me, removed from my game for a couple of years now, sitting here watching the show, and it's like, oh, gunslinger, cleric, barbarian, bard, druid, thief, ranger.
Yep.
You know what I mean? And it's like,
you got them all.
And so like you see it's amazing that as a gamer, when you see something visually and you instantly know it, even though you've never seen it before. I've never seen this before in a visual medium, but instantly I know what it is. Yeah. That was a thrill.
Yeah.
That was a total thrill.
That's Big B's hand. That's Big B's hand that he's using.
Of course it is, yeah.
I would like to rage. He actually rages. You can see when he flies into a rage.
Exactly.
So next up, you got Keyleth. She is a half-elf druid of the moon, I believe, which are the shapeshifty kind.
Maybe, sure.
It doesn't show up that much in the show, but she did it a lot in the game.
Times.
She did it a couple times. She turned into her tiger form. Minxie. So she's an air Ashari, which druids in this world, they have, like, there are 4 factions of druids, which are essentially the Avatar airbender.
Oh, okay.
Each element is represented.
Each element gets their own.
Yeah, and they're the guardians of the rifts to the elemental planes,
sure.
That sort of thing. So her whole deal is elemental and like leadership based. And then you got the twins. You got Vax and Vex there. They're half elves.
Yeah.
And that's Liam and Laura. So they share the same birthday. So they decided they were going to play twins.
Right. Okay. Now now I get it.
Yeah. And he's a rogue assassin.
Yeah.
And she is a Beastmaster Ranger.
Interesting.
I don't know if we put Trinket in this. I don't know if we got any pictures of Trinket the bear.
No, I didn't. And now that you say that, I should have.
That's all right. Trinket the bear he's sort of like the lovable mascot, because the stats of the Beastmaster Ranger.
I assume that's her animal companion.
That is her animal companion.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah, and they called him Trinket because she wanted the bear as a pet and the brother didn't. So he's like, "Oh, you're always picking up trinkets."
Trinkets.
So he's Trinket.
And that's how the name, and it stuck. Oh, that's cool.
So this is your motley crew, and
right.
They hit all the archetypes that you want to see in an adventuring party.
Yeah, I mean, we've got your
charismatic bard, your rage happy giant barbarian.
Yep.
You got your magic caster, you got your archer, your thief.
It's all there. What surprises me, so from a traditional gaming standpoint, there is one thing missing. There's no wizard.
That's correct. There was no wizard in the first campaign.
No wizard. So I mean, and you've got the closest thing to a wizard you have is your bard.
He is a lore bard, so they are more magically inclined than the rest of the bards. But Keyleth was their main caster for a long time.
Yeah.
Because we'll get into it later, but the lady who plays Pike, she was filming a live action TV show.
Off doing some face acting.
Yeah, so she wasn't there all the time. So often, most of the spellcasting came down to Keyleth and Scanlan.
Yeah, I mean, you always think of at least for 3rd edition Dungeons and Dragons, you think that, your party is like a heavy base of warrior types, and then you flesh it out with we need one rogue, we need a cleric, we need a wizard, and or a sorceress.
Interestingly
sorcery.
enough, a lot of the people who came in to play like guest spots,
Yeah.
a lot of them picked up heavy caster types
Interesting.
just by coincidence.
Sure.
There were a couple of warlocks. There was at least 2 sorcerers.
Yeah.
There was another cleric. Like
Right.
they were spread out across the gamut of spellcasters for the most part, which is interesting.
Okay.
That they just seem to naturally fill that hole. And here are the Briarwood.
So these are our main antagonists for the 10 episodes.
Correct.
They're not introduced right away though.
No. So again, when they first did the Kickstarter, they only wanted to do a single short, and then they were like, maybe we'll do a story that we haven't shown anybody, a story that wasn't on the stream. So that the first 2 episodes of the 12 episodes that were produced are an arc that was never televised. It was never streamed. It was just something that they did in Matt's living room.
Interesting. Is that pre-streaming?
Pre-streaming.
Oh, okay.
So they've talked about the character of like General Krieg and the general story of what happened in those 2 episodes. They've talked about it in interviews, but we never saw them act it out.
No. Okay.
So Delilah and Silas Briarwood are the primary antagonists of the first full arc that they...
Let me just say, before he ever did anything, I'm like, that dude's a vampire.
It's pretty obvious to anyone who has a brain cell between their ears. It's
that dude's a vampire.
Yeah. I mean, when you have the horse-drawn carriage coming out with the moon rising in the background, that's kind of the only way you introduce a vampire.
I didn't quite pick up on her though right away. I'm like, is she his ghoul? Is there something going on more? Clearly there's more going on there. She's
love
not a
the
vampire?
Briarwood.
She's not a vampire.
She's not. She is a necromancer.
Yeah.
So yeah, spoilers alert. Spoiler alert for
sorry,
anyone.
Yes. As Andrew says, spoiler alert. Yes, I'm sorry. If you haven't watched the show now, by the way,
pause here. Go watch a show, come back.
Vox Machina has been out on Amazon Prime now for what? Over
they finished at least a month ago.
I was going to say it's been over a month.
Yeah.
Hopefully you've had a chance to go and watch it now.
If not, you can get 30 days free Amazon Prime and you can watch it in 6 hours. So pause the video right now.
It's not a far stretch to sit down and binge it in a day.
And it's totally worth it. It's totally worth it. Honestly, I will say legitimately, this is the best cartoon I have seen in probably the last 10 years since the original Avatar.
It's I don't know if I would put it on my top list. It would be.
I don't consume a lot of cartoons anymore.
Fair. That's fair.
But this is high up there. Like,
I'm a big fan of serialized television. So like Monster of the Week or Adventure of the Week kind of thing, where every episode is a self-contained story. I would much rather have a linked story like this. So as far as that goes, as a whole, it's really, really good.
It's really good.
Yeah,
so
I agree.
The Briarwoods are the primary antagonists of the second arc of the Vox Machina story, which is the first arc that we get to see.
Right.
And the whole thing is that they are not evil for evil's sake. They are evil because evil allows them to continue to be together.
Oh, right.
So you see, in one of the episodes, you see a little snippet of a flashback of what happened. But basically, Silas was dying, and Delilah turned to necromancy to save him because she loved him.
Yeah.
And that turned him into a vampire.
Well,
there's a very good shot of her like hugging him in the bed, and then she looks over at the mirror and she's hugging nothing.
Yeah. Necromancy it's never used for. I mean, it's used for good intent, but it's never. You hear the word necromancer in fantasy tropes, and it's like, oh, that's some bad juju.
I've heard some very good stories of what they call gray necromancers, but that's for another day.
That's a new one for me.
I'm going to send you a link. You're going to listen to the guy's entire 20-minute story, and we're going to carry on.
Okay, fair enough. So the Briarwoods, and this is the thing. Like, I talked about this yesterday when we were discussing sort of how tonight was going to shape up, and I'd said the one thing that the show did really, really well was they swung hard in the first episode. In the very first episode, they
start in a tavern.
They start in a tavern, but the very first thing they do, and it's like, I'm thinking, okay, it's based on a Dungeons and Dragons game. They're not going to be portraying these guys like they're level 1 or new characters because they're the survivability of a first level character. Right.
Stub your toe a little too hard.
That's right. Don't trip on the stairs or you might end up unconscious, right?
Daggers do 1d4 and that's enough to kill a wizard.
That's right. So for a first episode and the thing they go, an adult dragon.
Yep.
They go after a dragon in the first episode and I'm like, where do you go from here?
Dungeons and dragons.
And dragons, right. We take a dragon on in the first episode and it only goes up from there. Okay, now we get a vampire.
Yeah.
Like, holy crap, now what are you going to do?
Yeah, and there's stuff about the dragon that we'll talk about later, but that first 2 episode arc really was just like, these are the characters. This is some of what they do.
Right.
This is their kind of reputation in the world. And, oh, by the way, there's going to be boobies and blood in this.
Yeah, there was some boobies and blood. Yeah. It's definitely
definitely not for kids.
It definitely earns its R rating.
Oh, it's so good.
Yeah, and it's a hard R.
Hard.
Yeah.
So there's the 2 episodes, and then we get into the Briarwood arc. And you want to do let's do the arc first. So the way it pans out, and this is full spoiler time. So if you want, I'm only going to go briefly into the episodes, but
oh yeah, sure, go for it.
So basically, the story goes that the Briarwoods have taken Whitestone, which was Percy's family lands.
Right.
Percy was a member of the Dorolo family. They were the ruling family of Whitestone. The Briarwoods came in, tricked the family, and then murdered them all, and tried to torture some information that Percy didn't have out.
Right.
Percy escaped. Stuff happened, got together with Vox Machina. Now they're an adventuring party, and they saved the realm from this blue dragon, this adult blue dragon. And that gets them higher status in the city. They become part of the Council of Taldore.
and they're awarded. And this is funny. For your service to the kingdom, we shall grant you a keep.
Yes, we have to keep you close.
They get their own keep.
Get their own keep, and it was actually in the stream they referred to it as Grayskull Keep.
Grayskull Keep.
So you notice
that one.
You notice that it doesn't have a name in the show.
No, we couldn't get away with that name.
No. But in the process of it, he mentions the name Briarwood, and if you watch the stream game where the Briarwood's name, you can actually watch Taliesin, who's the guy who plays Percy.
Oh, sure.
You actually watch his face, like the blood drains from his face, and he actually like slumps back in his chair, like, "Oh, I guess we're doing my story now."
Oh, wow. Yeah.
So yeah, every player gave their backstory to Matt, the DM, and
there you go.
He
right?
wove them all together.
That is a sign of a really good good dungeon master or storyteller or whatever you want to call them, is someone who is able to take the information that their players give them. This is my character's background. This is where they come from. This is what childhood was like.
Yep.
Not that every player is, really into that, going into that depth of their character, but to be able to do that, to take the stuff that the players have given you, sit on it for
however long,
sure, and then start dropping like tidbits back at you in the adventure.
Yeah. So they even say it in the show. Vex has been studying dragons her whole life because their parents were killed by a dragon.
Oh,
that's in their backstory, and that comes up later. Pike has trouble with her powers because she feels like she's straying from the light, and that comes back up in the story.
Oh, that comes up huge in the story.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Pretty much every character sitting at the table gets a significant arc at some point that resolves a major plot point of their backstory.
So. Oh, that's okay.
In the show, you see what amounts to, I think, like the first half to 2/3 of Pike's story.
Yeah.
There's a little bit more that comes later. And then you see all or 90% of Percy's story.
Oh, yeah.
Is resolved by the time the Briarwoods
they really go deep with him.
Are put down. Yeah. And I think it was a good choice because, again, the first arc that they did was kind of disjointed. You come in the middle of the story. You don't really know what's going on.
Actually, I kind of like that. It was like the in media res, like, you know nothing about it. It's just go.
Yeah.
I didn't mind that.
That's fair.
Yeah.
I just know that a lot of other people that I've put onto Critical Role have been a little bit off put by that first arc, just because they weren't expecting
The televised version.
And yeah, no, not the TV show, the actual Critical Role.
Oh, that it started.
So now I'm turning people onto Vox Machina, and it's yielding much better results.
Sure, it's easier to go back and consume it now that they're familiar with the TV show.
So yeah, this is Percy's backstory arc. Grog gets a bit of an arc, but he's a little more one dimensional, and the person who plays him was a rookie at the time, so they went a little bit lighter on them. Vex and Vax, their whole thing gets resolved. Keyleth's story is prevalent throughout, but it's spaced out because she has to hit all of the different elements. So
sure.
By the end of it, everybody has some kind of satisfying sort of resolution. And then he goes, okay, now it's time to fight the big bad.
Oh, yeah.
And then there's a final arc, which is
like yours, hers, mine, and ours.
Correct.
Yeah. Okay.
So yeah, Percy hears the name Briarwood, and he sees in the show, he sees them at the banquet, and he loses his mind.
Right. Yeah.
Because these are the people that ruined his life, killed his family.
Because the Briarwoods come in with a bunch of the other nobles of the surrounding kingdom.
Correct.
To basically talk about strengthening the relationship
after what just happened with
we just
the ancient blue dragon.
Yeah.
Who's been in our midst for who knows how long.
Oh, and by the way, the blue dragon was moonlighting as my chief of security.
Yeah.
As my captain of the guard.
Yeah. Bad days.
Yeah.
So there's various confrontations. What ends up happening is Vox Machina chases them to Whitestone. They meet up with the resistance in Whitestone, and there's a bit of an arc there, and then they end up sieging the castle, fighting the Briarwoods, winning the day. And then at the very end, there's an interesting twist with Percy's character that shows you a lot of what's been going on may or may not have been his fault.
Right.
So we can go into the character.
Oh, you want to go into that now? Sure.
Yeah, we'll go into that now.
I did not pull up all of the credentials for these people. I tried to pick up stuff that like the general audience of our show might recognize.
Mm-hmm.
So this is Percival. This is our gunslinger character. Is played. Now you're gonna have to say this because I don't even know if I can say this guy's name correctly, and I don't want to say it wrong. How do you say that?
Taliesin Jaffe.
Taliesin Jaffe, whose voice work includes Injustice 2,
Barry Allen,
Soul Calibur 4, Red Dead Redemption 2, and a whole bunch of other video game and animation properties. Another comment coming in here from Facebook. It's Andrew who says, totally a Yu-Gi-Oh influence on that dragon. Blue eyes, white lightning strike.
Yeah, I see what you're saying. I agree. That's a good parallel to pull.
So historically, as far as Dungeons and Dragons go, blue dragons have always had lightning breath.
That's correct.
Yeah, like all the way back to the 70s.
And that's why when Keyleth hits him with a lightning bolt, she goes, "Did I just make it worse?" So yes, you're on the right path there. So Taliesin's been in a lot. He's done a lot more as a producer and like a voice director than some of the other members of the crew. So
yeah, sure.
He has slightly fewer voice credits, but again, he made Percival. And honestly, like if I had time, I would sit down and go through all of the characters that he's made for Critical Role.
Oh yeah,
because he is a master at character creation.
Oh sure.
Like he runs from bad to worse to great to awful to holy crap.
Wow, yeah, but it's just the putting something out.
He was the veteran player, so he and Matt had played before together.
Sure, so they were already a group.
Yeah, Matt brought him in as a ringer to sort of push the rest of the group forward.
Okay, it's weird though because like in my experience, and you've experienced this too because we've played together, so you know what it's like. There's this kind of touches into the stigma thing, right? And I always say like kids or people who are into like say drama in high school would be a lot more receptive to the idea of playing in the first person. I do this, I do that. They speaking their dialogue in a funny voice like it was their character versus playing in the third person my character
My
does
character
this.
does this. My character does.
Yeah, and they never speak a line of dialogue the whole time.
Well, that's a rookie thing that kind of you see it even as you watch the streams. Like if you go back and watch the early streams, you'll see Grog does this, and then eventually, and then eventually he just I go over and I talk to him.
Sure, I've seen it with some of the few times that I have caught an episode, especially some of the guest starring episodes.
The one shots are easier to consume.
A lot of the guest stars are like, they've never picked up, they've never seen a polyhedral dice before. You know what I mean? Like, dice is the thing that comes in the Monopoly box, right? Yeah. And then to see them kind of like very timidly, like, oh, is this right? Am I doing this right?
Which one do I need? They're all so pointy.
Right.
Yeah.
I've wondered what it would be like to sit down and play with a group. They're actors. So, like, is it that immersive all the time?
It was intense. It got real. Like, there were times where someone would be like shouting across the table at someone
in character,
and like actual tears were being shed. Like,
by the person getting yelled at?
By other people in the group, because they were watching a friendship fall apart
within the game.
Is
that the person who's no longer there?
No, that's a whole other story that I really don't want to put any time into.
Enough. Okay, that's fine.
So this is Percy. Percy is the edgiest edgelord that ever edged. His hair used to be black, now it's white because he was traumatized. And he was visited in his dreams by a demon and taught how to create gunpowder and rifling.
Well, that's the cool thing about Dungeons and Dragons is like they give you these, like, if you want to add a little bit more future tech, there's black powder, or as far as gunpowder. And so like
in the story of Exandria,
this
guy created
he creates
gunpowder. He is the guy.
He's the guy that brought it to the world.
And he got it from a demon, which if you'll click on the next one.
Let's go to that.
This is Orthax. I love Orthax. He's a smoke demon.
If you're smoking, you better be on fire.
And they show you at various points in the show, like, smoke starts to leak out when he's feeling particularly angry and vengeful.
So I picked up on that, but I thought that it was like, this is artistic liberty. This is some kind of power that's unique.
Yeah, he's casting some kind of spell.
Yeah, I didn't just straight up assume that the whole show was like, this is strictly rooted in D&D and everything that you see in it is going to be, relatable to something.
Even if you know that Percy is a fighter.
Yeah.
Like, even that doesn't tell you much because there are magical classes of fighter now.
Yeah.
So, but they show it. Percy built the pepper box, which is a real type of gun that used to exist. It's basically a revolver with barrels instead of chambers.
Right.
So the barrels all spin. That weapon is called the List.
Oh, really?
And as he was making it, he didn't realize, but Orthax was putting the names of all the people that he wanted revenge against on
the barrels.
And he put 5 names on the barrels.
Okay.
The implication in the show was that the 6th barrel was for Percy.
Was reserved for himself.
Correct.
Interesting.
They actually show a picture of him sitting down.
That's right. Yeah.
With his shadow behind him, and the shadow has the gun pointed
to his head. Interesting.
So they took a lot of artistic liberties and stuff that didn't happen in
what was the deal? So, I mean, for anybody who's watching the show at home, and if you've seen Vox Machina at this point, you know what I'm talking about. What was the deal with the doctor, the bird mask?
So the doctor mask, it's kind of hard to explain, but it's basic. It's sort of what people do when they need to present something. When people talk about a retail face.
Okay.
You know what I mean? When you're in retail, it's all, hi, how are you doing? What can I do for you? And that's not really me.
Putting on a face.
That's what I'm putting on. So he's just literally putting on a face. This is the face of vengeance.
I was going to say, is this his Batman?
He modeled it after subconscious memory of Orthax.
Looking at the image, the image of the demon here, the Orthax demon, I'm like, okay. When you say it that way, are you telling me that's his Batman?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, that is his Batman.
All right, I get it. All right.
Yeah, present at the time. Yeah, Andy's got it here.
Oh, yes. Andrew says the plague doctor mask present at the time of a death. Oh, yeah.
Absolutely.
So. Okay.
Makes perfect sense. And it was literally just a visual thing where he would go, I'd put on the mask, and everyone at the table would just kind of turn to him and go, mask?
No, yeah, because I mean, that's for me, because we see him at first and he's participating in the battle, he's doing his thing, and then things start to get dark when he puts that mask on.
Yeah, he blows a kid's hand off for no reason.
Yeah.
He kneecaps another dude for no reason. It gets dark fast.
Reasons.
And then in the very end of it, the very final episode is dealing with Orthax.
Oh, right.
And when Orthax the demon realizes that the rest of Vox Machina is trying to stop him, he puts their names on the gun.
Oh.
And you see it spinning through, and it Grog, Vex.
Right.
And that's where it goes. And I'm not gonna say exactly how it ends.
By the time, well, I mean, this is what I'm saying. Like at this point, if you haven't seen it by now,
go watch it.
So
you're not doing yourself any favors.
By the time we get to the end of the series, he's destroyed it.
He doesn't destroy it. Scanlan destroys it.
The point is, it's destroyed.
It's
so
destroyed.
Is he going to build another one?
Well, if you remember, he pulls another one out of Ripley's bag.
Was it the same model?
It's a similar make and model.
Yeah.
But he's the only one who's supposed to know about it.
And this is not. This one's not cursed.
It's just blown apart pieces.
Okay, so
you see him at the very end, and sort of like before the stinger.
Yeah.
He's working on. He's got the gem in his hand.
Yeah. Okay.
And then he's got a gun on the table.
Yeah, because I mean, having a gunslinger in a medieval fantasy world without a gun.
Well, he's also got the rifle that he uses once.
Oh, right.
The rifle. This is what's that in your hand? Nothing but bad news.
Right.
Which is the name of the rifle.
Bad news.
Oh,
that's funny.
I love it.
That's funny.
So that's the basics for Percy.
As a tangent, when I was many years ago playing the West End Games version of the Star Wars role playing game, I had a bounty hunter who was like full on believed the propaganda machine, right? Like the Imperial propaganda, did not believe in Jedi or the Force, and he's like, yeah, the Force. That's what he called his blaster, was the Force.
Yeah, I really want to point out that Percy's story here and the way that they've presented it in the cartoon Legend of Vox Machina, it really does set up the themes of what the first season, because each season ends up having sort of a grander overall theme, and the theme of the first one was like finding yourself, and like confrontations with fate.
I was gonna say, like, you said that everybody got a satisfactory, like a satisfying story arc
by the end of the stream.
This series, this particular season, this is all him. They're in
his story,
but it's all him. So, like, presumably, subsequent seasons will focus on a different.
I will say,
member.
You have been introduced to some of the big bads.
Yep.
You see them at the end there. You've been introduced to Pike's main problem, which is her belief in herself.
Yeah.
You've been introduced to Scanlan's main problem, which I'm not going to say anything about because you've got to figure that out for yourself.
That he's a sexaholic.
The only person who you haven't seen any clues about yet, really, is Grog, because his story is kind of like entirely self-contained.
Okay.
So it doesn't really hit the broader arcs. But again, finding yourself,
that's fair.
Challenging destiny, challenging fate.
That's fair.
That kind of thing.
Okay.
This is Ashley Johnson. Ashley Johnson is the most lovable cinnamon bun who ever loved to be a cinnamon bun. She is
nice analogy. Okay.
Oh, she's adorable. I love her. She was Pike. Pike was the group's mom for the most part.
The group mom.
She was kind of the group mom.
Well, and why not? I mean, traditionally the group cleric is the one who keeps everybody's heads glued on.
Correct. But Pike was also a badass, as you saw in the show.
I did, and I quite enjoyed her character.
Yeah, and Ashley has done a lot. You've put a lot of this on the side here. She's the voice of Ellie in The Last of Us.
Yep.
I forget who she did in Teen Titans Go, but she's been in just about everything. She was in the Avengers. She was supposed to be a recurring character.
2012 live action Avengers. She's the waitress.
She was supposed to be the waitress who bumped into Steve Rogers from time to time when he stopped by her cafe, and she was going to be his like entry point into the civilian world of the 2000s.
Yeah, well, that would have been interesting. Instead of like having, you got to wonder if maybe the Agent 13 character if that supplanted that role.
That's likely what happened.
Yeah.
And I mean, she's still in the movie. You can see her on one of the screens in the helicarrier.
Yep.
So she's still in the movie. And while they were doing season 1 and most of season 2 of Critical Role, she had a mainstay role in Blind Spot.
Okay.
Which filmed in New York.
Right.
And Critical Role is based out of LA.
Yeah, okay.
So the whole reason that Pike has an astral form
right.
is because every once in a while she would Skype in for an important episode.
Yeah.
And Pike's astral form shows up.
In New York.
How convenient.
That's the worst thing too. We've done it's funny, Andy can appreciate this. I know you're following at home, Andy, but the time that we had to coordinate our schedule, because we're in Eastern time here in Ontario, Canada, and we did a Skype call with friends of ours from the Reflex Point podcast. Reflex Point, your weekly Robotech podcast. We did a collaboration with them, and they are they're two hosts. One of them is in Arizona, the other one is in California. So I mean, having to adjust for the time zones.
As a fan who watches Critical Role when it was live, and now when
watching it at 10 o'clock,
watching it at 10 o'clock on a Thursday, knowing I have to go to work the next day,
they're going to start at 10 o'clock my time, and they're going to play for 5 hours.
Yeah, 2 a.m.
I can't do this. I need to go to work tomorrow.
boss walks up to you. Why are you so messed up on Friday mornings? It's just a thing.
Are you on drugs?
Yeah, my dealer resupplies on a Thursday. So yeah, this is Ashley Pike. Again, I think this was her first character that she'd ever played in Dungeons and Dragons, and she played a healer.
I gotta say, of all of the characters, this is the one where the actor resembles their character more than anybody else.
That's fair. Yeah. And she's cosplayed as her more than once. Actually, they did an intro for the first season where they all cosplayed as their characters.
Yeah. Interesting. What does the DM do for that?
He cosplayed as just like random dark sorcerer.
Oh, that's okay.
As the villain.
That makes sense.
Yeah. So
that makes sense.
Yeah, that's Ashley Johnson. This is Travis Willingham, and he is amazing. Travis commits like no one else has ever committed. If he rolls a 1, he's going to take it as far as he can go.
Oh, really?
He loves it when he fails and he wins.
He's not waiting for the DM to tell him it's bad. He's just assuming and
no, he's like, I rolled a 1.
Oh,
so I immediately put my foot in my mouth and say something I wasn't supposed to. And Grog is a great character. He is both ends of the angry dumb spectrum in the best way.
Yeah.
And his catchphrase was "I would like to rage," which is why I'm so happy they put it in the first episode. In the second episode, I would like to rage.
Okay, that's cool.
And it's sort of become a tradition as they've gone through other campaigns.
Well, he worked on Star Wars, so he's okay by me.
As they've gone through other campaigns, I would like to rage has become the call to action for all barbarians ever.
Yeah. That's funny though. That's almost like, if he's gonna rage, that means we're getting into it.
Yeah, Travis's range. He's done a lot. He's done a lot of superhero stuff. He's done a lot of.
Is he the Thor?
He's been Thor in a lot of stuff.
Yeah, okay.
I was first introduced to him as the character of Roy Mustang in an anime called Full Metal Alchemist.
Oh yeah, okay.
Very famous anime. I did not know it was him. I was very impressed when I figured it out.
Now?
Yeah, and again, this was his first sort of time, so he kind of tiptoed his way around some things. He famously said on a talk show, like he's a little weirded out by romance in a D&D game.
Yeah, okay. You know what? That's not uncommon, though.
That's not uncommon, and he does get over it. In the second campaign, he plays a character that romances the character that his wife plays, admittedly.
But in my own experience, that is the safest, easiest, best way to play romance in your game is to do it with a life partner.
Absolutely.
Yeah, for sure.
Absolutely. But the fact that he got around it at all was like, that shows growth. Like, I'm impressed by that.
Yeah.
People who are way too afraid to come out of their shells.
It doesn't have to be weird.
Correct.
Yeah. Okay.
So that's Travis. And he's the CEO of Critical Role.
Oh, is he?
Now.
Okay. I always assumed
he's
that
the head of the ship.
I just assumed the DM was the
The DM has way too much to do to run the
I was gonna
company.
say, okay.
This is Sam Riegel. Sam Riegel is Scanlan Shorthold. Like,
okay.
he's not a sex crazed lunatic, but he's another one of these guys who commits like no one else.
Yeah.
Like, he does a lot of their advertisements for their sponsors.
Oh yeah, okay.
And like, he breaks into song.
He
costumes.
Was doing was going to do the episode there, the March 28th episode, when he's like, oh, and this is brought on by such and such, makers of these tarot cards, and by the way, I'm going to do a reading for all of you right now.
Oh yeah, he's great, and I don't know if he's creative director. I don't know what all of their positions are, but
sure,
they all work for the Critical Role company now, on top of what they do,
whatever other roles that they're taking,
and other roles. This guy is he's got a role on DuckTales. He was in 2 of the 4 Ninja Turtles.
Yeah.
He's like Naruto, like a bunch of high caliber anime, and he's in the Bad Batch.
I wish I could have listed like all of the acting credentials for
buddy,
because the list was just like
we'd be here for days.
Yeah. Not as big as somebody else coming up, but pretty big. They all have long.
So Scanlan is the scamp. He is the charismatic bard. He is a caster. His favorite spells are Big B's Hand and Modify Memory.
Yeah.
Like he gets into a lot of the shenanigans, but he also has one of the darkest moments in the stream is a Scanlan moment. And it was what led up to that argument that I was talking about of ending a friendship.
Okay. Yeah.
Not among actual friends, but among the characters in the party.
Interesting.
Scanlan actually leaves the party at one point.
Yeah.
Sam gets up, walks away from the table, and Matt just keeps playing. And then at the end of the episode, he's like, you're coming up to a tavern and you see this man, and Sam comes back and sits down and pulls out a new character sheet.
Oh, no way.
Everybody lost their shit on him.
How much that would take to orchestrate in the moment.
I think Matt was the only one who knew that was coming.
That they were.
I think Sam was like, I want to do this thing. I want to try playing this other character, and we're going to do this.
I need a way to get my old character out and my new character in. Then why not just go out with a bang?
And he comes in as this new character, and his new character is this like pompous, preening nobleman whose name is Tyrion Darrington.
Oh my god!
And
that's just annoying to hear for one time,
right? My name is Tyrion Darrington. My friends call me Terry.
Oh my god!
Oh, and everyone's like, I hate Terry. I don't like him. I don't want him in my party. Oh, it's hilarious. So Sam, oh man, the guy knows how to command the room.
Yeah, sure. All right, we're going on.
This is Marisha Ray. She is Matt's wife, the DM, and she plays Keyleth, the I don't know what I'm doing. I don't have any confidence in myself. Druid.
Yeah. I got that comes through in spades, by the way.
Yeah, the all-powerful wielder of all things nature magic.
Yeah.
Oh, I just don't have much confidence in myself.
She just has this air of like, I'm just not sure.
I will say, during the stream, people did not like Keyleth.
Really?
People did not like Keyleth.
Why?
Because she was indecisive, nervous.
Was that the
a little bit? A little bit of that might have been the player.
The player, yeah, okay.
And a little bit of it was a choice, but it ended up being what her arc was. She went from being this indecisive, waifish,
and growing,
and she grew into the voice of the Tempest.
See, that is that is organic growth, right?
Absolutely.
There. Yeah, I like that.
As she got more comfortable playing the game, and I think that they've done a good job in the show of portraying that kind of growth with Keyleth, because you do see her grow a little bit over the first season.
Okay.
Marisha has has I think the shortest list of credits, but it's no less impressive.
Yeah. No, it's good. A lot of it, if it wasn't and voice work isn't just animation. I mean,
there's lots of background.
Video game. There's a lot of additional voices.
Yeah,
there's a lot of them have
Soldier B.
Yeah.
Grenade out.
Yeah.
A lot of give me three efforts. One close one.
So her Star Wars Battlefront. That's what her Battlefront was. Female soldier number whatever.
Yeah. But Marisha, she is their chief of I think she's like their ideas person. She comes up with all of their ideas for their new properties and stuff. So
Interesting. Okay.
yeah,
cool.
This is Liam. Liam O'Brien is one of the instigators of the solo game or the one shot that started this whole thing. He plays Vaxeldan, who
You
is
mean the birthday one shot?
He's the birthday boy. Yeah.
Okay.
He plays Vaxeldan, otherwise known as Vax. For those of you who need to keep it straight, he's Vax, she's Vex.
Vax and Vex.
Vax and Vex.
A&E.
They got them mixed up so many times.
In the moment?
Just while they were playing. Vax, I'm over here.
Oh yeah.
Like
that's funny.
And Vax is the second edgiest edgelord that ever edged.
Oh yeah, I got that as well.
Yeah.
He's kind of he's
he's
almost emo.
He's a little emo.
Yeah,
He's kind of sort of a Rico Suave, sort of Dread Pirate Roberts kind of dude. Like
and he gets the romantic arc in this season.
He gets the first romantic arc. Yes.
It didn't work out very well.
It didn't work out very well. It may or may not work out very well in the rest.
Going forward,
I will neither confirm nor deny.
That's okay. I already read some things that made me go, damn it, I wish I didn't read that.
Yeah, if you pay enough attention, some of it becomes obvious. But again, Liam has a whole lot of accolades from Transformers. He's Avengers. He's part of the Bad Batch. I particularly know him as the voice of Illidan Stormrage from World of Warcraft.
So when I said earlier that a lot of them had tons of crossover, Warcraft came up for almost everybody.
Pretty much everybody. Yeah, I think. No, I think everybody's in it now in some capacity.
In one of the expansions or another.
Correct.
Right.
Yeah, but Liam was Illidan when I started playing WoW. It was the first thing I noticed when I listened to Critical Role. I'm like, hey, I know that voice.
Yeah.
And that's where a lot of the excitement starts. He's also like one of the main characters in Naruto. Like he's got a lot of big projects under his belt.
Okay. Big for as far as animation fans.
As far as animation fans go,
okay.
Yeah. This is Laura Bailey. Laura Bailey is a dice hoarder.
Oh.
Laura Bailey is
her dice or my dice?
Her dice and dice that she's supposed to give to other people.
Like dice that are on the table. Oh, I like that one. Now it's mine.
Yeah. Sort of. Okay. Maybe not so bad, but her goal in life is to have, you ever been to one of those candy stores where they have those things on the wall where you can just turn the dial and the candy comes out of the big tube?
Oh, yeah.
She wants that for dice in her basement.
That's funny.
Laura Bailey does, again, lots and lots of voice roles. Some of them up there. She was in the 2017 Spider-Man cartoon. Also in DuckTales. Ruby. I didn't know she was in Ruby. I'll have to look up she was in that.
The next one I put in there myself because that one stands out to me because I've actually seen this one. I own this one. Samurai 7.
They get around, man. Yeah. What can I tell you? You're looking at what amounts to the like Prince level of voice acting royalty.
Right.
Vexalia is a flirt. She is a ranger of unquestionable esteem.
Yeah.
She multi-classes as a rogue later, and she has a bear named Trinket, who is
her bear.
Awesome.
Yeah, I should have got a picture of that.
Yeah, no worries.
All right. Who do you got?
I named my dog Trinket after that bear.
Oh yeah,
for reals.
I was gonna say
for reals.
Yeah, you do. Your dog. I'm like, oh, so this is. I've heard this before.
Yeah. This is Matthew Mercer. Matthew Mercer, I would argue, is the most prolific voice actor on the cast. He's got accolades that would make your head spin. He's been in almost everything. He is at the top tier of
more leading roles.
More leading roles than anyone else.
I mean, when you say prolific, I was going to say, wait a minute, because we got someone coming up who has more acting credits than anybody else.
But I mean, in the main critical role cast,
yeah, sure.
Which is the all of the people that I've spoken about previously, and Matt. The next person we talk about is not part of the critical role. I noticed
that she was listed as a guest star.
Yes.
Yet she has a main role in this one.
She has a main role in this one, and that's because if we did what was funny and proper, Matt Mercer would do the voice of every other character in the show.
Well, I mean, that's traditional role playing where the game master is everybody that you're not.
So he's credited mostly as Silas Briarwood in this, but if you watch the actual end credits of each episode, his name is in there like 6 or 7 times.
Yeah.
And interestingly, in each episode, there is an NPC that looks exactly
Just like him.
And you get to play Spot Mercer in every
cool.
episode.
That's
sometimes he's a zombie, sometimes he's a skeleton, sometimes he's just the guy.
Funny. It's almost like
concierge.
It's almost like the Filmation She-Ra, where it was like Spot Lukey.
Right,
looking for Lukey. Where is he? Did you see me in this episode?
So yeah, Mercer's been in everything. Most famously, he plays the gunslinger in Overwatch, whose name they just changed. I don't know his new name, but they changed his name because the first name was named after someone who was problematic.
All right,
so moving on
brings us to, I think it's our last one.
This is voice acting royalty.
Yeah,
this is the queen of the voice acting scene.
Her, as I'm scrolling, as I'm like thumbing the wheel on the mouse, and I'm like, her list, it just keeps going
and going. How big is the scroll bar on the scroll bar? Is like 2 pixels. Yes, this is Grey Griffin. She is the voice of Delilah Briarwood.
Yeah,
and she's incredible.
Yeah, like absolutely, like great characterization for a villain.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And she not only just a villain, she played I'm a villain because of my love for my beloved. Yeah. Well, like she made that come through in spades.
So this is the thing, right? No villain thinks they're a villain.
Correct.
Right. And she definitely got that across.
And just look at her accolades, like Invincible, He-Man, Young Justice, She-Ra, like she's all over the map.
She's been in 2 Masters of the Universe properties. Mm-hmm. That's a win from you, by the way.
Good times. So yes, but she was not in the campaign. She never played the game. She's only playing Delilah at the request of this. At the request.
Well, so she's actually listed as a guest player in. Yeah,
I would have to look that up.
Yeah, it was on the on their. It was on one of the fan.
I would have to look that up. I might have missed that one shot.
Yeah. I don't know to what role, but I mean, when I was looking for guest stars, that's the thing that brings us to what I think is the interesting part of sort of coming the full circle moment is like.
I think that's the next slide too.
Yeah, the title of this episode was from Basement Obscurity to hit Amazon series. We talked about how Dungeons and Dragons had that stigma that went along with it, and now it's come so full mainstream that this show, and I don't mean the animated series, I mean Critical Role itself, the game, has attracted the likes of several very, very prominent actors that you may or may not recognize.
Yeah, people who played voices in this include Dominic Monaghan, best known as, I believe he's Pippin.
Yeah, Merry or Pippin, one of the hobbits.
One of the 2 hobbits that didn't go to Mordor. You got what's his name? The doctor.
David Tennant.
That's the one. David Tennant.
David Tennant, Doctor Who.
He plays the voice of General Krieg, who was the big bad for the first 2 episodes. The Blue Dragon.
Yeah.
Some of these other faces here have been guests who actually played the game. The voice of Sovereign Uriel, he's played by Kari Payton.
So everybody in the slide was a game guest.
Everybody in the slide, no, some of them weren't game guests.
According to what I read, they all were.
Okay, well then you read something that was not entirely correct. Some of them were game guests.
Sure.
Most of them were, but some of them weren't. There are a couple of them that are just voice actors that have come on for the show.
Yep.
But up at the top there, you got your Will Wheaton, you got your friggin' Vin Diesel, Stephen Colbert. Those guys all did.
Now I watched a portion of the Vin Diesel episode and I kind of laughed because he was basically playing his character from the movie that he had done,
which was why they were playing
the Witch Hunter.
Yeah, they were supposed to play for an hour, and then it's like, well, now it's 30 minutes. Well, now you got 10 minutes.
Sure.
So they played, and Matt custom made a class called the Blood Hunter.
Oh yeah.
To make up the mechanics of what he does in the movie.
Okay, well that's
so the entire cool. Blood Hunter class, which is an official Dungeons and Dragons class and is now available in D&D Beyond for you to use in your home games. The Blood Hunter was created because of that movie, because of that one shot for Vin Diesel.
Right.
They've done a lot of charity stuff. They did something for Red Nose Day with Stephen Colbert. They're doing another one later in April with Stephen Colbert.
Yeah.
And then some of these people were just voice actors.
And just to like run
for the
through some of
show.
the people here on the slide for the audio audience that can't see this, but we've had like guests like Jessica Chobot. We've got Stephen Root, who was Milton from Office Space. More recently was Battle Cat in the new Masters of the Universe Revelation. We've got Stephanie Beatrice from Brooklyn Nine-Nine. We've got Kelly Hu, and then Indira Varma, who is actually turning up in the Obi-Wan Kenobi series here coming up. Phil Lamar, another voice actor royalty, primarily. I mean, you might remember him as the Green Lantern, Jon Stewart Green Lantern. And then I don't know if you remember, but I certainly remember Cree Summer when she was a full-time face actor on the spinoff, the Cosby Show spinoff, A Different World.
Yeah,
she was one of Denise's roommates. But again, she's another voice actor royalty, if you will, who's been in a million things.
Well, the roots go deep, man. I mean, even like Ashley, she was a child actress. I forget what she was in, but I think it was All in the Family or something like.
Oh, really?
Something like that.
Oh, wow. Okay, yeah.
And she played one of the daughters in one of those daytime comedy shows.
Right. So Andy comes back and he's got another comment, says they've branched out to merchandise as well,
yes,
with a line of Funko Pops.
I will happily plug shop.critroll.com. There's Trinket the Bear.
Oh, that's
there
so
you go.
good. Yes.
Well done, Andy.
All right. And then the other thing I was going to say, I'm going to bring this up here now. Let me see if I can find them. Legend of.
There you go. There you go. Too far.
Here.
Yeah, they've got action figures coming out from this TV show.
So I was just here. I'm gonna pull this one up because this is a pretty good shot. You know what? Can we get the? Can we go right to McFarlane's website? Aha, there we go. Let's bring this one up.
There you go.
Here we go. Let's share that. I'm going to take this out for a second, and we're going to go share.
Share screen.
Yep.
There you go.
We're going to go.
Yeah, Todd McFarlane picked up a license to produce, and they're producing speculatively. So they picked two characters they're going to produce as the front line, and one of them is Vex.
Yeah, so there's Vex here, which we were looking at this a little bit earlier today, and I said
it actually looks better in this picture
than the one that we were looking.
Than the one that we were looking at. Excuse me.
I thought that this is a fairly faithful adaptation of an animated character, and it's like I'm a big action figure collector, and I collect a lot of Star Wars stuff. So when we see stuff that comes from like particularly 6-inch Star Wars Black Series, when they do figures that are from an animated property, they generally try to change the aesthetics so that they fit in with the main line, so they look like they're live action. This does not do that.
Not as much.
And I like it. I think it looks
a little more
good.
cartoony.
Well, I mean, I'll give you that.
But yeah, they're doing Vex, and they're doing a version of.
Do we have
Percy?
No, do they not have the other? They should have a related.
Right there in the bottom right.
Related. Here we go. Percy. So here's Percy.
Percy doesn't look as good in my opinion, but
I think it's when you start adding glasses.
Yeah.
It kind of.
I think they would have been fine to just leave his glasses off and have them as maybe an accessory.
I give them, props for doing it though.
Props for
trying to do glasses, because we've seen other characters in action figure form where the glasses are not. So,
and you can see by the price point, anyone who's bought a McFarlane action figure knows that the high vis, high profile ones are.
Well, I mean, this is a $24.99 US. This is directly from the McFarlane Toys site.
If you're going to get the super high detail ones, they usually top out at somewhere in the 80 to 90 plus.
I will say this: the price point, it will change. It's only a matter of time. But as we all recently heard, Todd McFarlane gave a fairly lengthy interview where he said, he's able to keep the price down because he's not a publicly traded company.
Right.
For how much longer? I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, lots of stuff going on. And again, if you want to get your hands on any actual Critical Role merchandise, shop.critroll.com. They do have a Canada store. So they can ship from, I believe their warehouse is in Toronto. So shipping's not going to run you ridiculous amounts of stuff. And they do have good.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's our that is just a quick rundown on Critical Role, The Legend of Vox Machina.
I could sit here for hours and regale you with stories from the now close to 2,000 hours of streamed content that they have.
Right. So, I mean, just based on that alone, if you were looking for a new entertainment property to, to waste some time with, there are worse things you could pick. And like you say, Eric, there is thousands of hours worth
Yeah.
of,
I find that it makes for really good like background fodder, like if you're cleaning your kitchen or something.
in the same vein of our show as a podcast. I mean, if you're on the road an awful lot,
Absolutely.
I wonder, do they have just a strict audio?
There is an audio stream. They're a little squirrely because they still have to work some stuff out with Geek and Sundry, but you
Okay.
can get everything as an audio podcast format.
Interesting.
So,
well, listen, man, I want to say a huge thank you for making the trip over this weekend to one, get out of the city.
Any excuse to get out of the city.
Get out of the city, come up here to the country and hang out with us for a night here in the Saw Cave to talk Vox Machina. It's been a wonderful conversation, and hopefully we're going to get successive seasons. We know that there's at least one more coming.
Yeah.
Possibly another if we ever
potentially figure out what that two season purchase means.
Yeah.
So I guess I just want to, in the words of Matt Mercer, don't forget to love each other, and we'll see you next time.
I was going to say, and don't forget, if you haven't already,
that too, hit the buttons,
do like and subscribe and all of those things. And of course, you know what, we're going to be back here again next week. I don't know what we're going to be talking about next week, but actually, you know what, I think I do have an idea. Andrew says, fantastic look into the world of Vox Machina.
Thanks,
Andy. I appreciate that. I know I hope you get a chance to watch some of the episodes today. If not, do go check those out. And of course, come back and hang out with us same time next week, Sunday nights Eastern at 6 p.m., where I'll be back, and hopefully Andy and or Hank will be back with another pop culture topic to talk about next week here on Fandom Power. Until then, my name is Wes.
My name is Eric.
And we'll catch you next time. Bye. Cheers. For now, guys.